Because when we live in Hawaii, it helps other people understand what other cultures are saying. Like Japanese speaking to Filipinos, Filipinos speaking to Portuguese, and that's how Pidgin started.
Pidgin is a Creole version of English that came out of the plantation times when they had like Japanese, Portuguese, Chinese, Filipino all together. So it was the broken English that they used to communicate with each other.
Before, it's just basically showing who they really are. Some people may not take people that speak Pidgin seriously because they feel like they're taking it as a joke, but little do they know that they were trained and raised that way, so you can't really tell whether or not they're serious.
I don't think Pidgin is a bad thing. Being a history teacher, I know that Pidgin, is part of how Hawaii was created from the plantation days.
Well, growing up in Hawaii, I know a lot of locals speak it, and it's kind of like considered to be a cool language, and if you can speak it, you're more local than others maybe.
Pidgin is technically a broken English, but I would say it's different from English. Yeah. Some people consider it a language, which I think that gets into what the actual definition of a language is. And in my opinion, language is a huge part of culture. And so Pidgin grew out of the plantation culture. And so in that context, I would say it is a separate language from English.
It's a culture where, like as I said in the last question, where it's a way for people to communicate when things cannot be understood.
So Pidgin, I guess to me, it's like a slang in terms of English that locals use. It's more, I guess, when you think about it, broken English.
It is broken English. It's slang. It's can also be using words from different languages and kind of bringing them in. So it's kind of like a mixture of languages too.
I think that Pidgin can be termed as a broken English, but when I think of broken English, I think of people that are English second language learners, so they don't necessarily know the structure of English and all the rules to English, versus people that speak Pidgin. I find that they do know proper grammar. It's just kind of more of a slang than an actual than actually broken English where they don't know structure.
When you speak, it's more like it's culture. So in a way, only I guess people of the islands or who are from here would possibly understand. Because even when I've gone to the mainland, if you even have like a distinct, I guess, line that you use that is more, I guess, familiar on the island.
And I think that it is useful for locals that understand Pidgin. But for example, if you're not from Hawaii and someone were to speak Pidgin to you, you wouldn't necessarily understand what they're saying, yeah?
My mom would always tell me, stop speaking Pidgin. That's what I grew up around. All my friends spoke Pidgin. So I was kind of forced to be able to speak both proper English as well as Pidgin. But I think that if you only speak Pidgin and you're never really taught or you're never really expected to speak proper English, that could definitely lead to bad habits later. Sometimes the bad habits can show up in writing and the way we write. The Pidgin and the way we speak Pidgin is definitely not like how we speak or write proper English. So I think bad habits can show up there.
Pidgin can be used when you're having like conversations with people, casual conversation. To go back to the other question, in a classroom setting, I don't think that Pidgin should be banned from classrooms, but it should be clear that students can do both. So like code switching, where they should be able to write and speak in proper English and also know Pidgin.
I think that some students, they express themselves better when they're speaking in Pidgin versus speaking proper English. So I do allow that, but they need to know when to turn it on and off, when it's the time to speak in Pidgin and when it's the time to speak proper English. Like, I will give prompts to them to say you need to write out correctly, or you need to speak in proper English. Not saying that proper English is correct, but in a professional setting, they should be speaking in proper English, not Pidgin. But if it's casual, we're just having a class discussion, I don't mind that.
It will kind of tweak with your habits where you just have to know whether or not to be professional or not.
I've seen videos, like there was a Pidgin Voice of Hawaii documentary made, and you know, back in like the 80s and early 90s, there was a movement to try to eliminate Pidgin from the classroom because they were saying like it brought down student scores. But like I mentioned earlier, I think there's a time and place for everything. I think Pidgin is okay in the classroom as long as it's also the expectation of being able to use proper English is also there.
It is sometimes inappropriate to use Pidgin in class or in a professional setting. However, like I said, here in Hawaii, there are certain jobs and careers where knowing Pidgin is beneficial.
I think it depends on the person, number one, like if you can turn it on and off. So if you can speak Pidgin around your family and friends and speak and be professional in a different setting, then I think it's not. Now, if you can be professional and somehow speak Pidgin, then also that's great too. But I think our society views Pidgin as being informal language more than formal. But it depends on who they're speaking to.
Pidgin shouldn't be accepted in a professional setting because it lacks the professionalism on how the way a person talks, and it just perceives the person's view, the one that's, how you say it, the person that's talking to you. So it's not really professional.
As long as they learn when to turn it on and off, again, it's like to me, I think of it as like sending text messages to my friends or sending emails to like my boss. Like those are two different things. Like me sending a text message to my friend is very, very casual, and that's done way more often than professional emails to my boss.
I think for myself, if I never learned to speak proper English or be able to use proper English, I think that I would have had a harder time on the mainland. Even as it is, the time I spent on the mainland, there were definitely times even when I thought I was speaking proper English, I'd still get funny looks from people who didn't quite understand what I was saying. So I think in terms of, you know, the effect it can have later on, yeah, it can have a negative impact. So I think for me, like, it just goes back to, as long as you're able to speak a little bit of proper English, I think that's important.
I don't think it will lead to bad English in the future, because as we know that we all take English ever since we're young, since kindergarten and all the way to high school. So
You really can't force someone to pretend to be someone they're really not. But at the same time, there's a place to speak Pidgin and there's a place not to. It's like saying there's a place and a time to fool around and there's a place and a time to take it serious. So that's where Pidgin comes in. There's just a place to do it and there's a place not to do it. So, but I believe y'all to show, who they really are. The way you speak shows what type of person you really are. And I know business is very professional, but professional is being who you really are.